My wife told me I should be grateful she hasn't cheated because she's way above my league. So, I hired a private investigator and discovered she was already having multiple affairs while planning to divorce me and take half the business I built. Before we met, I never imagined that the woman I married would become so cruel and arrogant that she would openly tell me I should be grateful for her faithfulness while secretly planning to destroy my life. I'm Stephen, 34 male, and I was married to Victoria, 31 female, for 6 years before she revealed her true character in the most devastating way possible. What started as a loving partnership turned into the most manipulative and calculated betrayal I've ever experienced. But the revenge I got was so perfectly orchestrated that it still amazes me. Victoria and I met 8 years ago when she was working as a marketing assistant at a small firm and I was running my own software development company that I had started right out of college. My business was doing well, but I was working constantly and had little time for dating. Victoria seemed to understand my dedication to building something meaningful, and she was supportive of my long hours and business travel during our early relationship. When we first got together, Victoria was sweet, down-to-earth, and genuinely interested in learning about my work and goals. She would bring me dinner when I was working late, help me organize my home office, and even attend networking events with me to support my business relationships. Victoria seemed proud to be with someone who was building his own company, and she often told people that she admired my work ethic and entrepreneurial spirit. Our relationship progressed naturally, and we got married after dating for 2 years. At the time, Victoria was still working in marketing but had been promoted to a coordinator role with better pay and more responsibility. She was ambitious and talked about wanting to advance in her career, which I completely supported. I even helped her pay for additional marketing certifications and courses that would make her more competitive for senior positions. For the first few years of our marriage, we were genuinely happy together. My business continued to grow, and I was able to hire additional employees and take on larger contracts. Victoria got promoted again and was making good money in her marketing role. We bought a beautiful house together, traveled regularly, and talked about starting a family within the next few years. Everything seemed to be going exactly as we had planned. The change in Victoria's behavior started about 2 years ago when she got recruited for a senior marketing manager position at a prestigious tech company. The job came with a significant salary increase, stock options, and the kind of corporate benefits that my small business couldn't match. Victoria was excited about the opportunity and saw it as validation of her professional worth and potential. I was completely supportive of Victoria's career advancement and encouraged her to take the position. I was proud of her success and happy that she was achieving her professional goals. The company she joined had an excellent reputation, and I knew the experience would be valuable for her long-term career development. I never imagined that her success would change her attitude toward me and our marriage so dramatically. Within a few months of starting her new job, Victoria began making subtle comments about the differences between her corporate environment and my small business operation. She would mention how sophisticated her new colleagues were, how much more professional everything was at her company compared to my home office setup, and how impressed people were with her background and qualifications when they learned about her position. At first, these comments seemed like normal excitement about a new job and workplace. Victoria had every right to be proud of her accomplishments, and I wanted her to feel confident and successful in her career. But as the months passed, her comments became more pointed and seemed designed to make me feel inferior rather than to share her enthusiasm about work. Victoria started criticizing aspects of my business that she had previously supported and encouraged. She would make snide remarks about my casual dress code, the fact that I work from home rather than in a traditional office, and my preference for smaller clients over corporate contracts. She began acting embarrassed when I attended company social events with her, and she started introducing me simply as her husband rather than talking about my business the way she used to. The most painful change was in how Victoria talked about our financial situation. Even though my business was generating more income than her salary, Victoria started acting like she was the primary breadwinner and that I should be grateful for her financial contributions. She would make comments about how much more stable her corporate job was compared to the uncertainty of running a small business. And she began insisting that we make financial decisions based on her preferences rather than discussing things as equal partners. Victoria also started spending significantly more money on her appearance and wardrobe. She claimed that her professional image was important for her career advancement, which I understood and supported. But her spending became excessive, with expensive haircuts, designer clothing, and regular spa treatments that seemed more about impressing her colleagues than maintaining a professional appearance. Her social life began changing as well. Victoria started going out with coworkers several nights a week, often staying out late and coming home after I was already asleep. She said that networking and building relationships with her colleagues was crucial for her career success, and she made it clear that she didn't want me joining these social activities because they were work-related rather than social gatherings for spouses. The breaking point came 6 months ago during what should have been a normal evening at home. I had been working on a particularly challenging project and was stressed about meeting a client deadline. When Victoria came home from another late night with coworkers, I mentioned that I missed spending evenings together and asked if we could plan some quality time during the upcoming weekend. Victoria's response was so cruel and unexpected that it left me speechless. She told me that I should be grateful she comes home to me at all, considering how much more attractive and successful she had become since taking her new job. She said that she could have her pick of the sophisticated, accomplished men she worked with, and that I should consider myself lucky that she hadn't cheated on me yet since she was clearly way above my league. The venom in Victoria's voice and the calculated cruelty of her words made me realize that the woman I had married was gone, replaced by someone who saw me as beneath her in our marriage, as a burden she was graciously tolerating. She continued her tirade, saying that I should appreciate having a wife who was so much more attractive and successful than I deserved, and that most women in her position would have already left their husbands for someone more worthy of their time and attention. I was devastated by Victoria's outburst, but what hurt most was the realization that she had been thinking these things for months and had finally decided to say them out loud. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or something she said in anger. It was a calculated statement designed to put me in my place and make me feel grateful for whatever scraps of attention she chose to give me. After Victoria finished her cruel speech, she went upstairs to bed as if nothing had happened, leaving me alone in the living room trying to process what had just occurred. I spent the rest of the night wondering how my marriage had deteriorated to the point where my wife felt comfortable telling me that I should be thankful she hadn't cheated on me yet, as if her fidelity was some kind of generous gift rather than a basic expectation of marriage. Over the next few days, Victoria acted like nothing had happened and went about her normal routine of late nights with coworkers and weekend social events that didn't include me. But her words had fundamentally changed how I saw our relationship, and I started paying closer attention to her behavior and looking for signs that she might already be doing exactly what she had threatened to do. Victoria's cruel comment about being above my league and how I should be grateful she hadn't cheated yet made me realize that I needed to find out what was really happening. During all those late nights with coworkers, her behavior had become so suspicious and her attitude so hostile that I suspected she might already be involved with someone else and was just waiting for the right moment to leave me. I decided to hire a private investigator to find out the truth about Victoria's activities and relationships with her coworkers. I found a reputable firm that specialized in matrimonial investigations, and I met with a professional investigator named Patricia who had extensive experience with infidelity cases. Patricia was straightforward about what kind of evidence would be needed and what I could expect from the investigation process. Patricia's initial surveillance focused on Victoria's evening activities and weekend social events that supposedly involved her coworkers. What she discovered was far worse than I had feared, and it explained Victoria's sudden sense of superiority and her cruel comments about my worthiness as a husband. According to Patricia's findings, Victoria had been having an affair with her boss, James, for over 8 months. James was a senior executive at Victoria's company, recently divorced and exactly the kind of sophisticated, corporate type that Victoria had been raving about since she started her new job. Their relationship had started as after-work drinks and had quickly escalated into regular hotel meetings and romantic weekend getaways. But James wasn't Victoria's only affair. Patricia discovered that Victoria was also involved with 2 other men from her professional circle, a client named Robert, who owned a successful consulting firm, and a lawyer named Michael who worked on corporate deals for Victoria's company. Victoria had been juggling multiple relationships while maintaining the facade of a devoted wife who was simply focused on career advancement. The evidence Patricia gathered was extensive and undeniable. There were photos of Victoria with each of her affair partners in romantic situations, credit card records showing payments for hotel rooms and expensive dinners, and even recordings of phone conversations where Victoria discussed her relationships with friends and talked about her plans for leaving me once she had secured her financial future. Most shocking was discovering Victoria's long-term strategy for ending our marriage. Through surveillance and investigation, Patricia learned that Victoria had been consulting with a divorce attorney for several months and was planning to leave me in a way that would maximize her financial benefits. Victoria believed that she was entitled to half of my business assets, even though I had built my company entirely before we met and she had never been involved in its operations. Victoria's attorney had apparently advised her that she could claim spousal support based on her contributions to our household and her sacrifice of potential career advancement to support my business in the early years of our marriage. This was completely false. Victoria had actually advanced her career significantly during our marriage, and I had supported her professional development both financially and emotionally. Even worse, Patricia discovered that Victoria had been secretly documenting what she claimed was evidence of my inadequacy as a husband and business owner. She had been keeping a journal of complaints about my work habits, social skills, and earning potential, apparently planning to use this information to paint me as an unsuccessful partner who had held back her career and social advancement. Victoria's affair partners were apparently unaware of each other, and each believed he was in an exclusive relationship with her. She had been telling different lies to each man about her marriage and her plans for divorce, customizing her story based on what she thought each man wanted to hear about her situation and availability. James believed that Victoria was unhappily married to a failed entrepreneur who couldn't provide for her properly and that she was planning to leave me as soon as she could secure her financial independence. Robert thought Victoria was separated and living with me temporarily for financial reasons while her divorce was being finalized. Michael had been told that Victoria was in an open marriage with a husband who didn't care about her infidelity as long as she maintained appearances. The financial aspect of Victoria's deception was particularly galling. She had been using money from our joint accounts to pay for her affairs, including expensive lingerie, romantic dinners, and hotel rooms where she met her various partners. She had also been receiving expensive gifts from her affair partners, including jewelry and designer items that she claimed were work bonuses or purchases she had made for herself. Most importantly, Patricia's investigation revealed that Victoria was planning to file for divorce within the next 2 months, timing it to coincide with a major contract that my business was about to sign. Her attorney had advised her that my business would be more valuable at that point, increasing her potential settlement, and that I would be less likely to fight the divorce aggressively if I was focused on completing the business deal. When Patricia showed me all the evidence she had compiled, I felt like my entire marriage had been a lie. The woman I thought I knew and loved had been systematically betraying me while planning to destroy my business and financial security. Her cruel comment about being above my league had been projection. She was already cheating with multiple men and felt entitled to do so because she considered herself superior to me in every way. But now I had the information and evidence I needed to turn the tables on Victoria's elaborate deception. Instead of being blindsided by her planned divorce and financial demands, I could take control of the situation and ensure that Victoria faced consequences for her betrayal and cruelty. Armed with Patricia's evidence of Victoria's multiple affairs and her plans to destroy my business through a manipulative divorce, I began planning a comprehensive response that would expose her hypocrisy and protect my financial interests. Victoria had made the fatal mistake of underestimating me while overestimating her own cleverness and superiority. My first step was to consult with my own divorce attorney, someone Patricia recommended who had experience with complex cases involving business assets and infidelity. My lawyer reviewed all of Patricia's evidence and confirmed that Victoria's adultery would significantly impact any potential divorce settlement, especially since she had been using marital assets to fund her affairs. More importantly, my attorney explained that Victoria's claims about being entitled to half my business were completely unfounded. Since I had established and built my company entirely before our marriage, and Victoria had never been involved in its operations or contributed to its growth, she had no legitimate claim to my business assets. Her attorney had apparently been giving her false information to encourage her to pursue an aggressive divorce strategy. While I was preparing my legal defense, I also began documenting Victoria's current behavior and spending patterns. I started keeping detailed records of her late nights out, her excessive spending on personal items, and her hostile attitude toward me in our marriage. I also began recording some of our conversations, particularly when Victoria made disparaging comments about my business or threatened me with divorce. The most satisfying part of my planning involved deciding how to expose Victoria's affairs to the people who mattered most in her life. Victoria had been so focused on maintaining her professional image and impressing her corporate colleagues that she had made herself vulnerable to public embarrassment and professional consequences. I decided that the perfect opportunity would be Victoria's company's annual holiday party, which was scheduled for the following month. Victoria had been looking forward to this event for weeks, seeing it as an opportunity to show off her professional success and social connections. She had even bought an expensive new dress and spent hundreds of dollars on professional hair and makeup for the occasion. What Victoria didn't know was that I had RSVP'd as her spouse and would be attending the party with her, something she hadn't expected since she usually tried to exclude me from her work events. When she asked why I suddenly wanted to attend a corporate function, I told her that I'd been thinking about her comments regarding the sophistication of her colleagues and wanted to meet the people she found so impressive. Victoria seemed pleased that I was finally showing interest in her professional world, though she also appeared nervous about how I would fit in with her coworkers. She spent considerable time coaching me on what to wear and how to behave at the event, making it clear that she was worried about being embarrassed by my presence among her sophisticated colleagues. The night of the party, Victoria looked beautiful and confident as we arrived at the upscale hotel where her company was hosting the event. She immediately began introducing me to her coworkers, though I noticed she was careful to keep me away from James, Robert, and Michael, who were all in attendance. Victoria's nervousness about managing her various relationships was obvious to me, though her colleagues seemed oblivious to the undercurrents. About halfway through the evening, I asked for everyone's attention so that I could make a toast to my wife and her professional success. Victoria looked surprised but pleased, clearly expecting a standard, supportive husband speech that would enhance her image among her colleagues. Instead, I began by thanking Victoria's company for giving my wife the confidence and self-esteem she needed to finally show her true character. I explained that Victoria had recently told me how lucky I should feel that she hadn't cheated on me, given that she was so far above my league, and that I wanted to share with everyone how right she had been about her superior worth and attractiveness. I watched the confusion ripple through the room as my words hung in the air. Victoria's smile faltered, her eyes darting around to see how her colleagues were reacting. She tried to laugh it off, reaching for my arm to stop me, whispering through gritted teeth, "Stephen, sit down. You're drunk." "I'm perfectly sober, Victoria," I said into the microphone, my voice steady and cold. "In fact, I've never seen things more clearly. You said you were above my league. You said I should be grateful. And looking at the company you keep, I realized you were right. I couldn't possibly compete with the complex relationships you've built here." I pulled a small remote from my pocket and pointed it at the massive projection screen behind the stage. I had spent the last hour charming the AV technician, claiming I had a romantic surprise montage for my wife. He had queued up my file without a second thought. "I wanted to honor the team that helped Victoria reach her full potential," I announced. I clicked the button. The first image wasn't a wedding photo. It was a high-resolution surveillance shot of Victoria and James, her boss, kissing passionately in the parking lot of a Red Lobster. The room gasped. It was a collective, sharp intake of breath that sucked the air out of the ballroom. James dropped his wine glass. It shattered, red liquid pooling on the white carpet like a gunshot wound. "James," I said, addressing him directly. "Victoria talks about you constantly. Specifically, she told me, and I quote, that you were a lonely, desperate old man who is so easy to manipulate it's almost boring." James's face turned a shade of purple I didn't know existed. Victoria lunged for the remote, but I stepped aside. I clicked again. Audio played over the ballroom speakers. It was crystal clear. Victoria's voice, unmistakable. "He thinks I'm actually attracted to him. It's pathetic. But as long as he keeps approving my expense reports for client dinners that are actually spa days, I'll let him think he has a shot at marriage. Turn it off." Victoria shrieked, her composure shattering completely. "Stephen, stop it." "But we're not done," I said. "We have to acknowledge Robert." Click. A photo of Victoria and Robert, the client, entering a boutique hotel at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Robert," I said, finding him in the crowd. He was standing next to his wife, who looked like she had been turned to stone. "Victoria told me you were vital to her career. Mostly because she convinced you that James was incompetent and that she was the real power behind the throne. She promised you she'd steer the contract to your firm if you gave her a commission, didn't she?" I played the next audio clip. "Robert is useful, but God, he's needy. I told him I'm leaving Stephen for him just to get him to sign the vendor agreement. Once the bonus hits my account, I'll ghost him. He's too stupid to read the fine print anyway." Robert looked at Victoria with pure hatred. His wife, however, didn't look at Victoria. She looked at Robert, and then she slapped him across the face so hard the sound echoed off the vaulted ceiling. And finally, I said, we can't forget legal counsel. Michael. I pointed to the lawyer near the bar. He was already trying to inch toward the exit. Click. A series of emails appeared on the screen. Not photos this time. Evidence. You see, Michael wasn't just a lover, I explained to the stunned room. He was the architect. Victoria seduced him to get free legal advice on how to divorce me and take my business. But Michael, you should have been more careful. You billed the company for the hours you spent in bed with my wife. You labeled it, corporate strategy compliance. The audio cue played. Michael is the biggest slimeball of them all, but he's riding the prenup loophole for me. He thinks we're going to run away together with half of Steven's assets. Joke's on him. I'm going to report him to the Bar Association for sleeping with a client the second the divorce is finalized. I don't need a lawyer with a conscience. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating, and absolute. Victoria stood alone in the center of the dance floor. Her sophisticated colleagues had backed away from her as if she were radioactive. She looked at James, then Robert, then Michael. She looked for a savior, for one of the men she had entranced, manipulated, and controlled. But she found no love there. Not anymore. James looked like his career was over, which it was, considering the CEO was standing 10 feet away, watching his senior executive get exposed for embezzlement and sexual misconduct. Robert was being physically assaulted by his wife. And Michael looked like he was about to vomit, knowing he was facing disbarment and fraud charges. They had all done her bidding because they thought they were special. They thought they were the one she truly loved. I had just shown them that to Victoria, they were nothing but tools in a toolbox she was planning to set on fire. You ruined everything, Victoria hissed at me, tears streaming down her face, ruining the professional makeup she'd spent so much money on. You petty, jealous, little man. You destroyed my career. No, Victoria, I said, placing the remote on the table. You did that yourself. I just turned on the lights. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. Oh, and one last thing. You wanted a divorce. You wanted half of my business. I tossed the envelope at her feet. Those are the papers. But you might want to read the financial disclosure carefully. My attorney found the forensic trail of the company money you stole with James and Michael to fund your secret exit account. We handed that evidence to the IRS and your company's fraud department this morning. My business assets are untouched. Your assets, however. I imagine they'll be frozen by tomorrow pending the criminal investigation. Victoria stared at the envelope on the floor. She didn't pick it up. She looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I didn't see arrogance. I saw fear. Genuine, trembling fear. Stephen, please, she whispered, her voice cracking. We can talk about this. Don't leave me here. I looked at her, this woman who thought she was a queen among peasants, and felt absolutely nothing. I'd stay, I said, buttoning my jacket. But honestly, Victoria, I think I'm out of your league. I walked out of the ballroom to the sound of absolute chaos erupting behind me. I heard the CEO shouting for security. I heard Robert's wife screaming. I heard Michael trying to explain himself to a board member. I walked through the lobby, out the front doors, and into the cold night air. I called Patricia, my PI. It's done, I said. How did it go? She asked. Perfectly. The fallout was swift and brutal. James was fired for cause and sued by the company for misappropriation of funds. Robert lost his consulting contract and his marriage. Michael was disbarred and is currently facing charges for billing fraud. And Victoria? She was fired immediately. Because of the fraud investigation, her bank accounts were frozen. She tried to come back to the house, but I had already changed the locks and obtained a restraining order based on her threats and the theft of marital funds. She ended up moving back in with her parents in a small town 3 states away. The last I heard, she was working as a receptionist at a car dealership, trying to pay off her legal fees. She tried to reach out to me once, sending a long email blaming her behavior on stress and work culture, claiming she was the victim of powerful men who manipulated her. I didn't reply. I just forwarded it to her affair partner's lawyers. Let them fight it out. I kept my business. I kept my house. And most importantly, I kept my dignity. It turns out, being boring and stable wins in the end. Victoria wanted a high-stakes life with high-stakes men. She got it. She gambled everything on her own superiority, and she lost the house.
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.